Hi, I'm Dexter Gelfand. Thanks for looking at my video, and this is going to be the first of a series. This talk is called Understanding Relative Levels of Sanity, a Variable Condition. The most basic and recurrent theme of Dianetics and Scientology may well be the subject of sanity. Book 1, as we call it, which is Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health. This is what the book looks like, the book with the volcano cover in various languages. This one's in Russian. Or simply by its initials, DMSMH, Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health, is a handbook of how to attain higher sanity through eliminating aberration, the antithesis of rational thinking. In this practice, we have techniques for eliminating the mental machinery that is detrimental to sanity. These come under the category of what we call negative gain processing, what you might call addition by subtraction. That is, reducing the negative elements to free the positive elements of such basic abilities as perception, analysis, decision, and action. As explained by L. Ron Hubbard, author of DMSMH, and other writings to be referenced here, quote, negative gain, by removal of the harmful thing, you can get a positive advance, unquote. And this is from a tape lecture entitled ESTO 6 7203 C03 S02. You'll be able to read the transcript of this if you want to get that. Anyway, there exist positive gain processes in which the aforementioned basic abilities are directly addressed and exercised so as to bring about a greater realization of these abilities. Sanity and insanity are recognized in Scientology to be relative rather than absolute terms. For most people, sanity is a hazy concept at best, viewed from one's own relative state of sanity or insanity, and not clearly defined. It is one of the basic breakthroughs of this body of knowledge to clearly define the terms in a way that is useful and workable. From DMSMH, quote, sanity is the ability to tell differences. The better one can tell differences, the more rational he is. The less one can tell differences, and the closer one comes to thinking in identities, the less sane he is. To further clarify thinking in identities, we'll refer to the Dianetics and Scientology Technical Dictionary. This is it. Okay then, thinking in identities. The inability to evaluate differences in time, location, form, composition, or importance. The lowest level of reasoning is complete inability to differentiate, which is to say identification. Okay, when we say identification, it's the mental impairment of mistaking things which are different from each other to be identical to each other. Thus, you could also say the more confused a person's thinking is, the less sane they are. See definition 3 of confuse in the Funk and Wagnall's Standard Desk Dictionary, to mistake one for the other. In other words, identification. In daily life, this insanity manifests itself in people's heretofore unexplained tendencies to react to one situation as though it were another, to react to one person as though they were another, overreacting to what was actually said, done, or meant, thus exhibiting a failure to recognize and respond appropriately to what is actually happening. We've all seen a lot of that. Thinking in identities is also manifested as making generalities and stereotyping people, places, and activities as they're all the same, about any type of people or things. It is one sign of compromised ability to reason. Thomas Edison kept this observation posted in his laboratory in West Orange, New Jersey. There is no expedient to which a man will not resort to avoid the true labor of thinking. Today we know that reasoning only becomes laborious to the degree that one's mind is debilitated with thinking in identities. One example of thinking in identities is to take the idea, rice and beans provide good nutrition, to the illogical extreme of having the same identical meal of rice and beans 3 times a day. This can result in a variety of mental problems, medical problems arising from nutritional deficiencies. Ironically, in today's Church of Scientology, in the management structure known as the Sea Org, the rank and file workers are actually fed this exact diet, rice and beans 3 times a day. Let this serve as one of the many examples of why we must be sane enough to differentiate between the principles of Scientology, the philosophy, and the Church of Scientology. 2 very different things. Please, let's not identify them. Thank you. Therefore, we learn to recognize sanity as differentiation, the relative ability to see things as unique and not identical to other things, people, places, points in the flow of time, objects, etc. Coming to this understanding was in itself a breakthrough that led the way to define the factors that could reduce sanity in the mind, the things that make us confused about where we are, who others are, and what is actually existing and happening around us, thus causing behavior that is not appropriate to our actual environments and situations. Removing and eliminating these factors would be the negative gain processing that we've been talking about. From Hubbard's book, Scientology 88008, there's a section entitled Differentiation, Association, and Identification. Quoting from that book, differentiation is at the top of the tone scale. And what do we mean by the tone scale? We'll go back to the Tech Dictionary. Tone scale, a scale which plots the descending spiral of life from full vitality and consciousness through half vitality and consciousness all the way down to death. The range of emotion. Okay, so differentiation is at the top of the tone scale and is a condition of the highest level of sanity and individuality. So at the top of the scale is individuality. Association or similarity is a condition which exists from the upper to the very low range of the scale, and identification, that's at the bottom of the scale. We'll look at another definition now. Pre-clear from the Tech Dictionary, a person who, through Scientology processing, is finding out more about himself in life. The condition of the pre-clear can be established readily by his ability to associate. He can, however, associate much too well. Association is the essence of logic. Logic is the gradient scale of relating facts one to another. As logic reaches the lower part of the scale, this relationship becomes finer until at last identification is reached and thought could be expressed in terms of A equals A equals A equals A. Let's define that also from the Tech Dictionary. A equals A equals A equals A. Irrationally identifying thoughts, people, objects, experiences, statements, etc. with one another where little or no similarity actually exists. An excellent rendition of this, although one not related to experience and which did not have with it a truly workable therapy, is to be found in the subject of general semantics. Let's define the word semantics from the Funk and Wagner Standard Desk Dictionary. Semantics, the relation between signs and symbols and that which they signify or denote. In other words, the word and how that word is actually perceived, what it is perceived to mean, what is associated with the word or symbol. In the book Science and Sanity by Alfred Korzybski, insanity is the inability to associate or differentiate properly. Association expresses itself in the pre-clear in terms of the way he thinks. When he reaches a low level of association, he supposes himself to be thinking connectedly, but is actually thinking in a completely disassociated fashion, for he identifies facts which should not be identified with. Identification is a mental aberration which could be thought of as misidentification, thinking you recognize something for what it is, when in fact That's not what it is. But on a grand scale, wherein stuck ideas connected to old mental images continue to resurface in connection with what is here now. Although these images shouldn't be connected with now, because now is different from then. The point in time from which the old mental images derive is then, and this is now. Thus it could be said that the basic identification, or confusing this with that, is of time itself. That is, unknowingly reacting to something from another point in time that one's mind, automatically below your level of consciousness, is misevaluating to be the same thing being experienced here and now. In fact, an instructional bulletin issued on July 28th of 1963, in that bulletin, Hubbard stated, "We have known for many years that time is the single source of human aberration.